right? And now it's going to go live. I think it says we're live. Okay, so it will pop up on your screen here in just a second. Wayne's World, party time. Okay, we are live. Oh, see, got to turn your audio off. Okay, all right. So we are live in my classroom, and we are going to continue our discussion on the engineering design process. And I have a chair up here on the table. We're going to talk about that for just a second. What I've asked everybody in this class to do is think about a couple of questions. You watched part one, hopefully, and to think of a couple questions that you might have about the engineering design process. And so you're going to put those in the live chat, and the live chat is recorded. So later, when people watch this video, they're going to see the live chat at the same time they're watching the video. Okay, so make sure you don't say anything you wouldn't say to the whole world in there. Okay, all right. So the engineering design process is those 6 steps, and if you just watched this last video, then you shouldn't have any questions about that. They should just be those 6 steps, right? I noticed this chair in my class actually last period, and you'll notice it's missing a foot right here. Okay, and the first step of the design process, I would really try to understand the problem. Yeah, there's a foot missing, and that needs to be fixed. But is the problem the chair? Is the problem the student sitting in the chair? Is the problem this little piece that's on the bottom? I'm going to ask a lot of questions. Is there inherently a design flaw with the chair where it's not even maybe worth fixing? Remember, we have to validate the problem. Is it really a problem? Because that's another thing. Is it really a problem? Can I sit on the chair? I can, but I would ask the question, it's probably you could wobble around and might actually, somebody could fall and get hurt. So I'd say that's a problem. And so that would be part of validating the problem and then justifying it. Something wrong? Oh, is it frozen?
Mine is delayed by 5 seconds.
That's okay. I know it's delayed, but can you guys hear me okay? The video looks fine. Even if it's shaky a little bit, that's okay. Okay. All right, good. Okay, so the design process, first step is really understanding the problem. I think I understand the problem. So now I'm going to generate some concepts, right? That's number 2. And so I'm thinking maybe I could just take off. Somebody said, we were brainstorming, somebody said last class period, maybe just take off all the feet. And that was a good idea as far as brainstorming goes. It turned out we decided that's probably not the best idea because it has these sharp edges and it could damage the floor. But then that made me start thinking, well, maybe I could just take all these feet off and make new feet for all 4. Then another brainstorm idea was, well, maybe we could just 3D print the part that goes on here, the foot part that goes on here, and we could put it there. So we decided actually that's probably the best idea. We said, let's do that, okay? Then step 3, we're going to actually develop that concept. We're going to draw some pictures, figure out what color. We're going to figure out kind of exactly how we want it to be. And then when we prototype it, we're going to 3D print it. We're going to 3D print it on the 3D printer, and then we're going to test it by putting it there. Have the biggest fat guy in the class, me, Mr. Johnson, sit on it and make sure it'll hold the weight, it'll do okay. And then once we've gotten our data for the prototyping, then maybe we'll make the final one. And we'll evaluate it, see if it's good. Once we evaluate it, see if it's good, then we'll go and present it. We'll say, here's our solution we came up for this chair with the problem, okay? So that's an example, real-world example of an issue in the classroom with the chair that is broken and needs to be solved. So we use the real-world, we use the engineering design process to solve real-world problems, okay? So in the live chat, I haven't really been able to watch it too close. What happens when you eat pizza when doing the design process? You have a lot more fun because pizza makes everything better. Okay, let's see. Any other questions? Can the design process really solve every problem? This is a question I get a lot, guys. The design process maybe doesn't solve every problem. You still have to solve the problem. The design process is a framework. It's a plan. It's a way of organizing ideas and thoughts in the whole entire process of working on a problem. Okay, that's what the design process does. And yes, as far as I know, you could use it for any problem. I don't think there's a problem you could not use it for. And I challenge anybody to tell me what is a problem you think it can't be used for, and I will see if I can address how you could use the design process for that. Okay? Can the design process solve every problem if it is missing a step? Can the design process solve every problem if it is missing a step? So if it's missing a step, well, you don't want to miss a step in the design process because really they're all there for a reason. I guess it's possible to skip a step, but you wouldn't have the best experience with the process if you skipped a step. So why aren't there more steps in the design process? That's another good question. There are different steps listed depending upon where you get the information for a design process. A design process is simply that. It's a process for how you're going to design or solve something. There's some material out there where they would say the design process is maybe only like 4 steps. We've broken it down into 6 steps. Okay, so there could be more steps or less steps. The point is that it's a logical progression from one thing to another. So that's a good question. Who made the design process? You know what? I don't think any one person is credited with the design process. I think it's been something that people have been working on for a long, long time, is a way to organize how they're going to solve problems. Okay, any other questions? Why aren't there more steps? Or we covered the eating pizza one. Can the design process solve every problem? Why doesn't the design process solve everything? Well, I mean, again, I think I addressed that. Will the design process still work even if you skip a step? So I answered that one, I think. Okay, so if there's no more questions, okay, so we got one typing up. Okay, can you use the design process to get someone back from the dead? Okay, so this is kind of maybe more like the realm of science fiction, because there's absolutely no evidence to suggest scientifically that you could bring someone back from the dead scientifically. But you know, I guess it's possible, and you would say, really, what's the problem? Okay, really understanding death is the problem. I had somebody say, can we use the engineering design process to solve the problem of death? I mean, a way to keep people alive forever. Sure, you could. Like, they're actually working on that now. That's actually a problem that scientists are working on right now, how they can help prevent people from dying. Okay, that's a real thing. So really understanding the problem, step one. I don't think we really understand the problem. For a long time, they just figured that death was a part of life. And, you know, there's some people that are saying they're questioning that. They're thinking, no, maybe we don't actually have to die. So again, the engineering design process, step one, really understanding the problem. That's how you would start with that one. Okay, so how do companies use the design process? This is an excellent question because companies do use a design process. And a lot of times what happens is they'll have like quality controls. And one department will have to work on one part of the project and then move it to the next department or the next step in the design process. And if they determine it needs to get pushed back, then it'll get sent back and forth and back and forth. So they definitely, companies like engineering companies that design things, they definitely have processes. They definitely have steps that they follow. Okay, let's see. Is there another type of design process? Sure. There are different types of design process. I mean, really, if you think about it, the scientific method is a type of design process where really you're not designing anything necessarily, but you're trying to answer a question. And so you're gathering data and information and really trying to understand the problem. Then you're asking the question, and then you're testing it, and then you're evaluating the results, and then you're presenting those results. So yeah, I mean, the scientific method is another example of a design process, a kind of a process to follow. Those are good questions. Noah wants me to shout him out. So shout out Noah. There you go. Let's see. Can you use the design process to invent something? Absolutely. You can use the design process to invent something. That's exactly what we want to use it for, is to invent things that are going to make our life easier and better, and they're going to improve the world. Okay, there are real problems out there. There are people that don't have access to clean drinking water, and we're using the engineering design process to solve those problems. What else we got? Okay, Marcus wants to shout out. What's up, Tupac? All right. What else? Any other questions?
Mr. Go up.
How long does it take for a company to complete the design process? If I missed it, just type it in again. If I missed it, just type it in again. Okay. Yeah. See who made it. Well, we don't know. We don't know who made it. Can I get a shout out? I already gave you the shout out. Why is the design process made? Why was the design process made? Well, I mean, I'm sure it was just to solve a problem like anything. A logical way of thinking about problems and how we can solve them. And really, a lot of times people use the design process without even knowing that they're following a process. I mean, people who have learned to solve problems in their life typically follow some kind of process. They don't just try to see whatever works, because that can be frustrating. A lot of times I think what happens is people will try to solve a problem, like with this chair. They'll maybe just stick some tape on it or something and try it and then see if that works. And then try it again. And that could be good for like discovery, and that could be good for a way to test. But it could also be really frustrating, because you could continually run into failure and failure and failure. And if you do that, you can do that as part of the design process. But if you structure it first so that you can kind of know what you're doing and when you're doing it, that would probably probably have better results. All right. Does the design process work every time? Well, again, whether it works or not, I think that has to do with you and how you follow it and how you use it. It's just a framework, all right? It's a tool, all right? And so if you use it properly, yeah, I would say that it will work, okay? What else? What else? How do you actually know if what you were working on was right? Shout me out, please. And Amber Bamber. Okay, Brandon and Amber Bamber. Apparently I'm a giant duck. So you know that you're actually working on what you were working on was right, I think is through testing. So if you say, this is the problem, we came up with a solution for the problem, we evaluate it, and then we present it, and you get all the way through to the presentation and people are like, this doesn't work, or this is not what we wanted. Well, there you go. You got your answer. Or perhaps when you're prototyping, if it doesn't work, well, there you go. You got your answer, right? If you go, you start generating concepts and nobody's coming up with any ideas because we're not really sure what the problem is, well, there you go. You got your answer. And that's why you go all the way back to the beginning, or you go back, you fall back to another step, okay? So I think that's about good for this stream. I'll stream again in next class period. If you guys are able to watch, depending upon whatever you're doing, or if you want to watch during lunch or whatever, I would encourage you to do that, because I'm going to be answering more questions for other people, okay? All right. Any other questions? Let's see. Okay, yeah, one last question. Okay, were there any successful businesses because of the design process? Absolutely. The most valued company in the world at over $1 trillion, Apple Computer or Apple Inc., they use the design process for everything. Okay, any application or any product like the Apple Watch or the iPhone, they absolutely use a design process to design all of those things. Okay, so that those things have absolutely their engineers are incredibly successful because they do follow engineering steps. Okay, all right. Thanks so much, and I hope you enjoyed it.